Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. By now you have seen me travel to so many places, but a lot of work goes into planning these trips as well. So I thought, why not make a video about how I decide where I go and how I plan a trip. From experience, I know that especially as a solo female traveler, it gives you a sense of security to have a plan and to kind of know what to expect from a certain place or destination. What is most scary is the unknown. So once you make it more known, it gets less scary, which ultimately will make you more confident to go and visit a place. But let's start from the beginning. The first step in the customer journey, as the companies would call it, is getting inspiration. I'm pretty sure that just like me, you scroll on TikTok and you see lots of cool travel content coming by. Same goes for Instagram. I would simply save the things that I like, the places that I would love to go, and then I add them onto my bucket list. Sometimes the inspiration comes from YouTube videos or even the travel guides on Thatch. I also have my own travel guides on Thatch, so you can definitely go and check those out. And I will link a discount code in the description below. Some of them are completely free, but I'll make sure that you can scoop up the other ones with a cool discount. But once you have been inspired, you will then have an idea of a place you will want to go. I usually put all the places that have inspired me onto a Google My Maps, which will look like this. Once it gets quite crowded in one certain country, then I will do more specific research. Once I really want to go to a country, then I will look at blog posts to learn more about the place in detail. So then I will go and add even more things onto my Google My Maps, but I will also look into some very important things. You will have to look into the visa requirements. Being from Europe and traveling usually mostly in Europe, we are very fortunate that we do not need any visa. We don't even need an international passport. But this is very different for countries out of Europe. Sometimes you need to get a visa in advance, online, or you might have to go to the embassy. This could be for countries like China or African countries, etc. So definitely check out the visa requirements before booking a trip, or even starting to plan your trip. How much money will I need to go here? You can do this either by looking on the blog posts, and a lot of blog posts have a general or an average daily budget for a certain country. So let's say, for example, for Asia, you will have a daily budget of 35 euros per day if you are a budget backpacker, also expecting a bit of comfort, which is exactly who I am. So I'll have a look at how much money is needed for this trip. You could do this by looking at all the costs separately as well. I did this during COVID. I made entire spreadsheets of my estimated costs for certain destinations. This is an estimate. You will definitely be off by quite a lot, but then at least you know the basic amount of money that you would need to go to a certain destination, because you might not have that kind of money. For example, backpacking Australia, this will cost you significantly more than backpacking Southeast Asia, for example. So before you start planning and booking your trip, you might want to save up some more money so that you can travel this region comfortably, but also not miss out on anything. Then you will have to look into whether or not you will need vaccinations. Do I need certain vaccinations that I don't have yet? Will I need to take malaria pills for certain regions, because certain regions have certain risks attached to them as well. And this might be something you want to factor into planning. You might decide to avoid certain regions or simply take the necessary precautions. Then once all those logistics are out of the way, you know where you want to go, and you've done up some inspiration, I will gather all my research from the blogs, everything that I put onto my Google My Maps, into a spreadsheet to kind of form a general itinerary. I will look at the time that I want to go somewhere and then cross-reference this with the destination. Do they have certain holidays going on during this time? For example, Ramadan in Muslim countries, that might make it more difficult for you to travel to this destination because restaurants, etc. might be closed. Or will it be Songkran in Thailand and you risk getting soaking wet? During certain periods of the year, like Chinese New Year, the locals have time off and they will be traveling in their own country as well. Or you might actually want to plan your trip around certain dates, for example, the Lantern Festival in Thailand or Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. In some places it might be the rainy season or it might be the best time to travel. When it comes to budgeting, the shoulder season, when it's not the best time to travel but it's also not the worst, it's kind of in the middle. This can be a beneficial time for you to travel because accommodation, etc. might be cheaper, which which can save you a lot of money. These are all things to take into account when planning when you are going to the destination. When it comes to my itinerary spreadsheet, I usually calculate about 3 nights per stop that I make along the way, simply because otherwise, if it's a very long trip, I would get burnt out. If you only have a short amount of time, then yeah, why not spend the one night and then move on if that's what you need in order to see a lot of a certain country. Unfortunately, we don't all have unlimited time off, so I get that you might want to spend less time in one place. But if you can, take your time. When I'm backpacking, I don't book too much in advance, but for a short trip where there is not a lot of margin to lose time in a certain place, then you can go ahead and book everything in advance. But for a backpacking trip, I simply don't. I will book the first hostel of the trip, and then for the rest of the trip, I will book 1 or 2 days in advance. Because people you know along the way, they will recommend you things, so you might want to add extra stops in your itinerary, or you might like a place a lot more than you expected and want to spend some extra time there, even just because you met lots of cool people. Or you might not like a place and just want to get out of there as soon as possible. But once you have a general itinerary, by combining the Google My Maps and adding a few nights everywhere in the period that you think is the best period, here is how I would book every single element of my trip, starting with the flights. For the flights, you can go onto either Skyscanner, Google Flights, or Momondo. I personally like Momondo a lot because I can input certain dates and make them flexible. So I can say, this is the date I want to travel around, but it could be either 3 days in advance or 3 days after. And that way I can see which date has the cheapest flights. These websites compare all the different websites that offer flights and they give you the best deals. I usually don't like leaving too early, but for 100 euros I might consider it. But I will not book through these websites though. I will have a look at which airline is offering the cheapest fare, and then I will go directly to the website of the airline and book directly, so that there is not a second link in between you and the airline with different rules, etc. You have to make sure that just the rules of the airline apply to your tickets. I also heard that Google Flights has a feature that does cashback. So if you book your flights on Google Flights and it ends up becoming cheaper, then they will refund you the difference. But I haven't really figured out how that works yet. If you are still doubting between a few destinations, you can have a look at the Explore page of these websites, because there you can see the cheapest flights worldwide and you can compare your different destinations that you would like to go to and base your decision off of which flights are cheaper. Then for the rest of my transportation, I will go on to Rome to Rio. Rome to Rio gathers pretty much all the information around the world about public transportation, about flights. Pretty much any mode of transportation is calculated into this. They give you an average price of what a certain leg of journey would cost you, and it usually also shows you the operators of a certain journey. You can then go to that operator's website and book directly with them as well. For Asia, this is super easy because you just go on Want to Go Asia and they have every single mode of transportation that you could possibly think of. Entire journeys including buses, trains, and ferries you can find in package deals, and you can also read the reviews of other travelers. So yeah, that's usually how I look into my transportation, but not everything is always online. So if I am backpacking, I just ask the hostel reception or I just look on the spot for the best mode of transportation and also often the cheapest. When it comes to accommodation, there is a new website called Cozy Cozy, and this one compares all the different accommodation websites. So Booking.com, Airbnb, Expedia, Trip.com, and all of those are combined into one website comparing all the prices on these different websites. For our Greece trip, I have been doing lots of research on there to find the best hotels. Once again, you then book directly on the website that you choose. When I'm backpacking, I use my Hostel World app. I will put in my destination, my dates, and then I will have a look at the best rated hostels. From the best rated hostels, I will then have a look at which ones for me are the best value for money. I don't always go to the best rated one because it might be very expensive, but then I'll go for one that also has really great ratings, but maybe costs a bit less. When it comes to accommodation, I really look into location. Location is one of the main things for me, because if your location is good, You will spend a lot less money on transportation, less money on taxis, etc., because a hotel that is outside of the city center might be cheaper, but it will be more difficult for you to get to the places you want to visit, and it might cost you money to get to those places. So an accommodation that is close to a bus station or the city center or anything that you want to visit is definitely an advantage. Before booking something, I also check if there is a cancellation policy. I will never book anything that I cannot cancel up until a day or a few days in advance. Especially now with our Greece trip, it is still a few months away, and you want to make sure that you can still cancel it in case something happens within those few months. If you plan on getting around with a rental car, then there are a few different websites that also compare prices, like Local Rent or Holiday Cars, for example, which is one that we really like to use for our Greece trips. And for rental cars, it is also important that you check which kind of insurance you have. It is best to have one that covers everything, also the wheels, scratches, the windows, as much as possible, because you do not want to turn in the car and then end up having a lot more costs than you expected. To hire a rental car, you will also need to give your credit card. They will then keep a certain amount of money on your credit card blocked for a certain time, just in case anything happens to the car, which is also something to take into account because that's money you will not be able to use. So you need to make sure that also your limit of your credit card is high enough, and you will need to pick up the car with the same credit card that you booked it with. This is also very important. When it comes to activities, there are a lot of sites that I love to have a look on. For example, Viator, Get Your Guide, sometimes Scooter Walks for free walking tours, and of course Airbnb experiences as well. I will usually book this once I'm on destination, but my best friend traveled to Rome during the autumn holidays, and since it's a European holiday week, it was so busy in Rome that you really had to book things in advance. And then once you've kind of planned everything, so you know when you're going, you've maybe booked your flights, you know more or less the itinerary that you will be taking. You can arrange transportation, accommodation, and activities on site, or maybe if you don't have much time in advance, make sure that you can cancel things if necessary. Then it is time to actually start preparing for the trip. You can do some more research if you want to, but you will also need to get some essentials. If you do not have one yet, get a travel insurance. Before you even start planning anything, certain credit cards will also allow you to cancel things that you've booked, aside from the cancellation policies of the places that you booked with. They should be enough to cover you for cancellation, any illnesses that you might get while abroad, and also sometimes loss, damaging, or even getting your things stolen. Then are you planning on getting around by car or by moped? Then definitely look into getting an international driver's license. Some things are quite hard to get on a destination. For example, female hygiene products. You can't come by tampons that easily outside of Europe. Also, sunscreen might be very expensive where you're going, especially if it's an island in the middle of the Philippines and they have to import everything. So it's always good to have some sunscreen with you. Have a look at any deals that are going on in the month leading up to your trip so that you can get some cheap sunscreen. Maybe you will need some medicine that won't be as easily to get by on your destination. Malaria medicine, but also some Enterol, which will be for your stomach. Some charcoal tablets are always good to have on you in case you get food poisoning, which we don't want, but it's always possible. And so much more. Just make sure you have the medication that you think you might need. It is always a good idea to have some dollars on you. So this weekend I'm going to Brussels and I will look into the best exchange rates or exchange offices, and I will go and exchange some euros into dollars, because some places expect you to have dollars in order to get a visa upon arrival, like Egypt, and some places somehow only accept dollars for certain things. Like I've seen that one stretch of the journey within Egypt will cost me $20 and they don't really accept anything else. So I will just make sure that I have some dollars on me at all times as well. I already told you about the travel credit cards, but having one card will usually not be enough. Like I said, sometimes you'll be at your limit, especially if you are booking a lot of things on the go. If your flight already costs €1,000, then that's a lot of money that's already taken up from your limit. And there's a chance that one of your cards gets blocked, which I've had. I've had a card blocked in Panama and I didn't find out about it until 4 months later when I arrived home, because they can only send you a letter or somehow. They can't call you or they can't send you an email that they've done this for phishing reasons, which is so idiotic. Your card might get swallowed in a machine, cards might get lost or stolen. So I have many different cards with me at all times. I do not want to be in the situation of not having a single card like I did in Mexico. Get yourself multiple cards and spread them throughout your luggage. Don't keep them in the same place. Sometimes you need to activate credit cards for a certain region as well. When packing, you might also want to look into regulations, especially when it comes to camera equipment. I know that Egypt and also Nicaragua, they can be quite paranoid and they don't want you to bring drones into the country or big lenses, or you have to travel quite light when it comes to electronics. Because I don't know, they think you'll be spying on them or something. This is also going to be a struggle for me, I think. I also make sure that I have a copy of my passport and other documents, and also that I have a few pass photos, just in case they ask for one to put on your visa on arrival, or if you need to go and get yourself a new passport at the embassy. Yeah. And then aside from that, pack light. They always say bring half of what you want to bring and then half it again. I think I've mastered this by now and I'm quite good at packing light. Don't bring too much. You will hate yourself for it. I have a 40-liter backpack. I have made separate videos about what I bring on a trip. If you have a tendency to pack very heavily or to pack too much, then have a look at my videos. I will make an unpacking video pretty much right after this one for Egypt and Turkey as well. This is going to be the most challenging packing I've ever done, because I'm used to packing for either plus 30 or minus 30, and now it's going to be like 9 degrees up until 30 degrees. So it's going to be a challenge to pack. That's why I'm finishing the video once I get back, just to make sure that anything I messed up or I really needed and didn't have, I can also put that into the video. But anyway, once you are packed and you are booked, then you are ready to go. Once I have everything ready, I usually make an overview of the trip that I'm going to go on for my family. So I will make one for my parents, one for my grandma, and that way they can kind of follow along and they kind of know what I will be up to. They can then track me throughout my trip on Polar Steps. I will then add in the pictures of the activities I did, and that way they can join me along on my trip. Before I arrive somewhere, just like I said in my border crossing video, I make sure that I have the destination downloaded offline, and I make sure that I know the local currency as well, so that I can take out the right amount of money once I land there. Then once I am traveling, I am taking notes of every single thing that I spent. I put it in my notes app, and then I will eventually put it into my spreadsheet, so that at the end I have an overview of everything that I've spent, and that way, I don't know, I feel like you just have more control over your finances. You know exactly how much you've spent, and this will also help you in the future to plan your next trips financially. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. I hope you find it useful, and also that you learned something new that you will be able to implement for your next trip. When you see this, I will almost be finishing my trip in Turkey and Egypt. So if you don't want to miss any of those videos, definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like if you found it useful. I will be joined by my best friend in Turkey. We will travel all around the country, and then I'm flying onto Egypt alone, and I will be backpacking solo through Egypt, which will definitely be an adventure. Lots of amazing dives and incredible archaeological sites, pretty much. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to go Egypt for so long, but I always thought I couldn't do it alone. And then I realized, I mean, look at the places I've been. I'm a smart cookie. I'm not new at this. I know what it takes to stay safe. And I will also be sharing all my tips when it comes to safety once I get back. So I hope to see you in the next videos. Bye!